Welcome to Monarchist Minute, Royalist news and discussion out of the good old US of A. I am Charles York, but today we're not going to be really discussing the news, but there is definitely going to be some discussion. That's right, we are overdue for a fun episode, and I thought, let's have some fun and do a fun episode because it's fun. Why not have some fun? So, I currently have a list of 6 questions for my co-host to answer, and our co-hosts are Victor, of course. My co-hosts are Victor, Will, and a new one, I believe, Prussian Dixie. So very Prussian. I don't know how, but whatever. So, with that out of the way, I will ask Prussian the question, then I will ask Victor a question, and then I will ask Will a question, and then we'll just go through the list of the 6 questions and any ones that I add up. They do not know the questions ahead of time, and they are allowed to answer as seriously or unseriously as they want. And because it's tangentially related to monarchism, the first question is this. All right. What is your favorite anti-monarchy argument? Whether it be because it's really stupid or because on the surface it seems legitimate and you actually like to argue against it, or somewhere in the middle. So, Prussian?
That's a really hard question right there. It's a very hard question.
Don't think too hard.
Trying to think of them. Like, there's a lot. I'm like, I don't know, like how exactly. I guess I'm gonna choose this one, and it's because I think it's extremely stupid. It's the argument that it's the 21st century. We don't need monarchy anymore, and it's just like, well, that doesn't mean anything. That's just. I find that to be like the stupidest argument people can make. Is just like, it's old. That's why we need to get rid of it. Ah, yes, of course. Something is old. It should be gotten rid of. Yes, of course. Should we throw out the Communist Manifesto? It's about 100 and something years old at this point.
I think we should get rid of hammers. I mean, we've been using them for millennia at this point.
Why do we still have wheels? Those things are so old.
I know, right?
Maybe we up fire while we're at it. You know, fire's such an old thing, and
Just get rid of it. Just get rid of it at this point.
Yeah, you know what? Forget
21st century.
Yeah, everyone should just be using plasma places. Forget fireplaces. Plasma places are the future.
No, it's thorium. Thorium's where it's at.
Okay, a nuclear reactor in every hearth.
a nuclear-powered radiator.
I see no downsides to this.
Always slightly.
See why I see lots of downsides to this.
Well,
Anyway,
yeah,
my favorite argument, since I was told this was going to be a fun episode, so I decided not to think too hard tonight, but because you asked such a thought-provoking question, Charles York, I feel that I should actually think about this question and answer that my favorite non-monarchist argument or anti-monarchist argument is the timeless classic, monarchy is just a form of globalism.
What? Who?
I've never heard that.
I've never heard that.
Who do I need to smack for such a stupid comment?
If anything,
The
monarchism is just...
the denizens over at the Reddit clone website run by the former moderators of r/the Donald.
Oh, of course, they're Trump cards. That makes perfect sense.
You know, look, okay, President Trump is a lot of things, but his supporters are more
another
things. His supporters are more things. And I used to be one of them.
Democracy. Existence of his supporter. The existence of QAnon is enough reason to tell us that democracy should not be a thing.
I mean, we
Whatever happened
should...
to Anon?
Yeah, exactly. But we need to remember we should not be like Hillary Clinton and just be saying it's just a basket of deplorables.
Jokes on.
Are you
Voters
Oh,
are better.
I have to ask: are you a professional mimic?
No comment.
All
Okay,
right.
if people, just a disclaimer, we do not discriminate against certain groups of voters. We think all voters aren't necessarily bright.
To quote myself from an earlier episode, women's suffrage. I don't even believe in regular suffrage.
Yeah, I'll even go as far to say is take everything we say with a grain of salt because we're not intrinsically qualified to talk about politics either. I mean, we're not nobles, we're not trained for birth and government. We do this just because this is what we believe. And I'm more than happy to say that I don't have faith in myself as a governing authority either.
All right. Darth Calhoun has joined us, but so I'll bring him up to speed in a DM. But he will because he was a whole 6 minutes late. Oh, the absurdity! He will be he will go last in our questionnaire. So yeah, Vic, anyone have any final thoughts on Vic's answer before we move on to Will's answer? Okay. So Will, what do you think is your favorite anti-monarchist argument?
Well, I kind of just touched on it. It's the whole what makes a monarch intrinsically qualified to be an expert in government? What makes them so much better than everyone else in government? I have to ask, I answer the question with a question saying, what makes you such an expert that gives you a right to have an opinion about government? I mean, yeah, the monarch is born into it and trained from birth. You're just some schmo that shows up to the polls once a year. What makes you qualified to have an opinion on government?
Well, he took a civics class in in high school. I mean, obviously that gives him a good understanding of how our federal government works.
In theory, if their civics teacher was actually good, I honestly have no complaints about my civics teacher, Mrs. Jenkins. That lady went above and beyond. She didn't have to teach us how to file our taxes. She did because she thought we needed to know how to do that. God bless that woman.
All right. Anyone have any thoughts on Vix or not Vix? Will?
No,
Why do
I have
I
no.
have
I
no
have.
idea how I get you two confused. For whatever reason, I seem to do it so often. You got okay. Maybe it's because Will's tag starts with Vice Chancellor, and that's VI, and then yours is wait Will. Why isn't yours William Stout Vice Chancellor? It's Vice Chancellor William Stout. That kind of breaks the mold of everyone else.
Yeah, but John is also Chancellor. John.
I see. So the leadership they get to break
They
the
get their
trend.
title first.
Oh, okay. I get it.
Be respectful, Charles.
So to transition to this to our glorious Republican government, President it would be President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, but then Joe Manchin, Senator. Okay, I get it. I understand. No, okay. So anyone?
Okay. As
uh,
for Will's response, perfect. I have no nerves.
okay. Uh,
Bring on Darth.
okay, yeah, Darth. So, what is your favorite anti-monarchy uh, argument?
What was the taxes thing covered?
Nope.
No.
Okay. Well, frankly, it is the why should we pay taxes to a rich snob essentially mentality, even though every single president that we've had throughout history has been a rich snob. So it kind of defeats their point. That's I really don't need to deliberate, but on Will's point when I came in, I was hearing a raving, "Oh, I'm not an aristocrat, I don't know." Well, personally, I am of aristocratic blood, so I can answer this. An aristocrat is just a person, but they have a very distinct soul about them that has a very specific detachment from their people that allows them to properly govern, and most of that is I say it's in the blood, but it's a lot of people try to point to what makes a good aristocrat, what makes a good king. Honestly, I say it is a combination of blood, spirit, and
Could say that
and
manifests in the form of their upbringing, to be perfectly honest, the way they're raised. They get that aristocrat
well,
mindset.
the way that they're raised, like that only goes so far. Like several biologists have said that honestly, most of 80% of your character comes from your genetics. Only 20% comes from nurture.
But genetics is hard,
That is
though.
actually that is actually a very interesting point in the whole psychological nature versus nurture debate.
This
That
is
is
Yeah.
very
very
fun.
yeah.
No, I mean,
Let's
hey, no, no, no,
let's
no, no. I mean, I was the one who said, be as serious or unserious as you want. I should have counted on Darth being, you know. He'll have our next
but
question, but I'll see if anyone has any final thoughts on Darth before I move on to mine. My answer to my own question, because obviously
Um,
I'm the only one with a valid opinion.
I mean, I
Of
say that
course, Charles. We respect you so much.
That he tells himself at night so he doesn't have to cry into his pillow.
I've been too tired the last few nights to cry myself to sleep.
There's always time to cry.
All right. So no one has any final thoughts on Darce? All right. So I guess I think my answer would probably be the time position as well, because time, like the length that something's been around, the length that an idea has been around isn't necessarily a reflection on its quality in and of itself, because sin has been around for a while. That doesn't mean it's any good, but it's the fact that an idea has been implemented and it has been used for so long is a sign that it's a good idea, because monarchies have been around for a while, and monarchies have always seemed to be the most stable form of government. It was always individual people messing up, not not necessarily an inherently flawed system like republicanism, that it leads to these sorts of things. So that's one reason, and then another thing about that too, I guess, is, I mean, a lot of, I mean, language is a, I mean, there's so many different things that you can point to that have been around since time immemorial. I mentioned hammers. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, that's essentially all there is to it. But if you are going to fix something, use a hammer. Unless it's a computer, I have a feeling that wouldn't. Well, there's a lot of things that where a hammer probably wouldn't be the right tool. But I mean,
have technology.
what are you quoting there?
You
Fun.
know, it's the
that's
just Patrick
SpongeBob.
goes,
You
we
don't.
have technology. Dirt, 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 dirt.
Well,
Oh,
okay.
Patrick didn't fix the computer with a hammer. He used the computer as a
that's the hammer.
Same thing.
We
On y'all.
try hard enough.
I mean, Patrick is a fountain of wisdom, but he he does kind of embrace the rugged plebeian spirit, and is honestly, I say, the majority of plebs in the world that would just want to be left alone, and don't shouldn't be concerned about governance because it is frankly out of their domain. That's why you need people of the blood to be of that governing elite.
Yeah, I don't think that that Patrick would be a very informed nobleman, because he literally lives under a rock. So he wouldn't be able
Well,
to see the
that's because
concerns
he's
of
a
his
plebeian.
subjects. Yeah, but I mean, if he were a noble, he wouldn't be able to see the concerns of his subjects. So it wouldn't be a very good one.
Well,
Um,
technically, Patrick is canonically a royal because there was one episode where they traced his bloodline and he was in fact an inherited
Oh yeah,
throne.
yeah.
oh,
He's that spirit of plebeian.
oh man, this brings up SpongeBob used
By
to
the
be
way,
such a fun show.
people can be born in a certain caste, but spiritually be of a different caste. Like that happens. It is very rare. Most of the time, you will conform with your own caste and your own blood. But sometimes people rise above it or degrade below it. Like there are nobles who degrade down to a priestly, well, no, not priestly, a mercantile soul or a plebiscite soul, and sometimes there's a plebeian that is born of a priestly or aristocratic soul. So I will point that out.
Oh,
So,
Well
let's
put.
see. All right. So, does anyone have any final thoughts on this question before I move on to the next question?
No, yeah, I believe you can move on.
All right. Everyone else? Okay.
Yep.
Let me just keep, because I had to have two Google Docs open in order to keep the timestamps, because unlike a computer, I don't have enough random access memory to keep both in my mind. All right. All right. So this one's going to get a little more complicated. So
Hey, you should have 2 free dim slots that you can insert 2 more sticks in.
I can't afford it.
Oh, you can't afford more RAM? Really? Come
I
on.
mean,
Just
look, okay, I'm a peasant in more ways than one. Okay, no, no, I mean my computer has enough RAM. It's just my mind. Okay, so this is gonna get a little complicated.
I'm doubting that at this point. You can never have enough RAM.
just
I mean,
doubt.
I have 8 GB. I really think that 64 would be ideal, but
But 32 is like a minimum these days, and 64 is if you don't have that pleb.
I mean, okay. Mainly, the games I play aren't necessarily that resource intensive. So, like World of Warships. Okay, all I'm saying is that my PC is 5 years old, and the only thing I functionally it's been unmodified because it can't take a CD drive, and that makes me sad, or a DVD drive, and that makes me sad. Did you know that they make Blu-ray drives? Like you can actually get writable Blu-rays. They can store, and this would I guess this would have been impressive at the time, but they can store a whopping 50 gigabytes, which is more than a DVD, which is 4.7.
Whoa.
I mean, I'm sure that was impressive at the time, but like 50. But although now that my grandma has a Blu-ray player, my family really we skipped over Blu-ray, although we have one now because there was a free one that the school was giving away and the staff
Or you can
were
just
giving.
use a Xbox One or Xbox Series X.
Do you really think my grandma wants to spend however much an Xbox Series X costs just to play a Blu-ray?
Um, just saying, back in the day, literally the PS2 was a
Was the
replacement.
DVD player?
Yes.
It was cheaper than a lot of dedicated DVD players, which is absolutely hilarious. But no,
What?
so
I mean,
now
that just shows to its superiority over the DVD player.
so well yeah, but at the same time, Xbox Series X costs more than DVD disc player or Blu-ray player, and also my
Ha-
grandma already has a Blu-ray player.
well, I'm gonna go onto Amazon right now and debunk you.
Okay, well,
Question 2.
okay, well, yeah, okay. Personal thought later. Okay, so question the second is so I want you to imagine a preserved machine, right? Like either a preserved steam locomotive or a car or even a tank, even though I don't think it would get this far. And since it's being used, right? So it's not just sitting in a museum, right? Like a lot of preserved steam locomotives are out and actually doing
Mm-hmm.
things, right? Like Flying Scotsman or Big Boy 4014. Um, so I want you to imagine that when parts get worn, rather than just chucking the parts away, they put the parts to one side. And this goes on long enough 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years where eventually every single part, including the boiler, has to be replaced. A new custom boiler has to be made. We have the technology, as Tornado has proven, that it is possible to make steam locomotive boilers in this day and age. You just need money. Um, so what happens is once all the parts that were on the locomotive when we started this endeavor have been replaced and put into a pile, all those parts are reassembled, and you have a worn machine that would be unsafe to operate, but it's a complete machine. Now, let's take Flying Scotsman, for example, and say we do this with Flying Scotsman. Is the machine where we kept replacing the parts really Flying Scotsman, or is the pile of worn parts that we've reassembled to look like a A3 class locomotive Flying Scotsman? Because it's not the same with humans where our cells get replaced, but we still have the same soul, the same animated principle, soul when it comes to you
What do
know,
you mean?
mission.
It is bad luck to rename a ship. That's because that ship is fundamentally has a spirit of itself once it is put to sea. In fact, the Graf Spee, which was a German battle cruiser that Adolf Hitler chose to rename it was initially named Deutschland, but then it was renamed to Graf Spee, and
No.
it was
That was renamed Lützow. Deutschland was renamed Lützow.
oh
Graf Spee was its own one.
oh well no there was one that was renamed. I know it was like sunk
Yeah,
by the
yeah.
Royal Navy like at
Deutschland
the
was
beginning of the
renamed
war.
Lützow.
Well,
Deutschland was renamed Lützow.
oh Lutzow.
Yeah,
If I do remember right, Lutzow was also sunk during the war. So,
yeah.
but then other ships that didn't
Was
have
it the
this survived.
Tirpitz? Because I thought the Tirpitz was originally named something else.
No. Tirpitz was named
No,
Tirpitz.
Oh, I
yeah,
thought,
that
I
was
thought
a battleship, not a battle cruiser.
Well, it's
There's
more of
slight
it's a Panzer
differences.
ship. The Germans
Yeah,
didn't really.
well, I mean, Panzer ship was effectively the German version of a battle cruiser, and
Uh,
even the British Navy tried to say it was like a pocket battleship or like a battle cruiser. That their admiralty was kind of like split on what they should even call it.
yeah, because I
'Cause
mean, it doesn't really fit the traditional. Because like because it had 11-inch guns, which by that point wasn't considered battleship caliber, and the traditional definition of a battleship or battle cruiser is something that's fast enough to outrun any battleship, but has battleship caliber firepower, and it can hunt down anything smaller
it's a
than it.
glass cannon.
Yeah, well, it can withstand the ships it's supposed to fight. And German battle cruisers in World War One were given additional armor because the Germans realized that they were going to be outnumbered against the British, so they needed their battle cruisers to at least be able to stand up in the battle line for a while, because they needed the guns.
I mean, the Battle of Jutland was effectively the demonstration of the German superiority of naval design and technology. Um, in fact, this was pointed out before the war too, in World War One, that the British Admiralty really they wanted to go to war with the Germans because they knew that if they were to allow the German naval development to continue at their own pace, that the Germans are producing newer and also far superior battleships and battle cruisers, and that they were going to essentially overtake the Royal Navy in capability, even if not in total quantity of tonnage, because the Germans were actually spending about roughly a fifth of what the Royal Navy was spending, but the that Germans more efficiently spent it because the British had to spend a whole lot of money re-equipping older battleships that really should have been decommissioned because of their age. And that's the only reason why the British Navy kept its sheer tonnage of warships around for so long.
I mean, in fairness, they also had a lot more colonial commitments to maintain that needed armored cruisers and other ships. Then you
Well,
can't. It takes a
Oh
while to
yeah.
replace those.
Well yeah, but my point is just that like the Germans, like yes, technically didn't have as many ships, but the German ships that they did have were of such high quality that the British Navy feared the German Navy set to sea against them because the Battle of Jutland proved that the German Navy could outfire uh, British warships of the same type.
And although I will say that in terms of aesthetics, the competition was neck and neck, except when the British got to like the Queen Elizabeth. I don't know. I'm not really a fan of the Queen Anne mansions that were added later to British warships. Although Bismarck isn't exactly my favorite in terms of looks, but that's way later on. I don't know. But aesthetics really doesn't have much to do with shootiness, but I don't know.
The bit was a massive failure anyway. The guns were so powerful that it accidentally destroyed its own radar system.
Well, I mean, in fairness, the HMS, the Nelson class, which was made up of Nelson and Rodney, the guns, they didn't have glass thick enough, when with the original window size, and so they kept shattering. So they had to shrink the window size. I mean, guns being powerful enough to mess with things is not enough. I mean, the real problem with Bismarck was Well, what happened was because Germany wasn't building battleships for 20 years or 15 years or whenever the last German battleships were Imperial German battleships were laid down and the Bismarck was laid down. The kind of knowledge of that sort is, I'm not an expert, but apparently knowledge of that sort is very use it or lose it. And so the German battleships from the time of the Kaiser had 4 screws, but then the Germans, maybe as a weight saving, only had 3 screws on the Bismarck type ships. And also, I'm sure this was something like with a problem with the Bismarck specifically, but the what was the heavy cruiser class? The was it the Prince Eugen class? I don't know, but those heavy cruisers, uh, they were capable ships, but other navies were able to get similar capabilities out of them for less weight. Admiral Hipper, there we go.
The Prince Eugen also just had a massive armor belt compared to other heavy cruisers at the time. Like the Germans also wanted to build survivability into their ships because they knew that they wouldn't have as near the numbers.
Numerical parity, yeah. I don't know. German. I don't know. I'm not. I probably should look into it, but more. But I don't know. For me, I think that my favorite period of naval development. I mean, after World War One, I mean, I'm still interested in naval development, but I don't know. I think like World War One and prior are some of my favorite eras. Although the advent of the carriers, you cannot convince. I think that the Lexington class aircraft carriers probably even today are good contenders for the most beautiful aircraft carriers in the world.
I would second that motion. But I would say aesthetically, like the Kriegsmarine did have a very good aesthetic, even if they weren't like necessarily the best warships. Although actually, when the Americans, when we were given Prince Eugen, it was literally like we were drawing lots for different German warships. It was the British Navy, ours, and the Soviets were all drawing lots on who gets what German warship at the end. We got Prince Eugen, and when our engineers dissected the warship, literally most of the American engineers thought this warship should have been built in the 1950s.
And then we ran it into the ground because obviously we sent the German crew home, and then we used it. Didn't we use it in
In
Operation
nuclear bomb
Crossroads?
tests.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Operation.
it took actually, I think it was 2 nuclear bombs, and then it still didn't sink, and then they had to torpedo it.
Yeah, a lot of ships actually did that. You think that a nuclear bomb, like we're talking like maybe there were a couple standard class battleships that did that. There were
I think it was the Enterprise that also suffered that fate, which is
Oh no, Enterprise was just broken up. I'm a big USS Enterprise fanboy. Enterprise was broken up in 1960,
which,
in the 60s.
given that that is the most decorated
Decorated.
ship in U.S. naval history.
Oh yeah, that was an absolute shame. Like it was. I mean, like the Navy, the whole fiasco with Enterprise was just. Ugh. I mean, like I get why the Navy didn't want it because the Essex class were superior in practically every way, except arguably aesthetics again. I think the Yorktown class was also pretty beautiful. Um,
Enterprise carried the Pacific Naval War for like the first 3 years of the conflict.
yeah, I know. I mean, I once again, it's a tragedy, and it's probably one of the greatest injustices committed. Like, I'm glad we have Constitution. Like, really, I am. But comparing Constitution's record to victories, not victories, Constitution's record to Enterprise, like, I mean, Enterprise. I don't know. The state of New York wanted to preserve her, and apparently there was a fund. But the problem was, I think one of the problems was that there were a bunch of different funds set up across the country, and if they had pooled their resources, they would have had enough money or more than enough money to save her. But no individual fund had the capacity to save her, which is, I don't know. It's a real shame that. Yeah, I mean I don't know. She deserved better than that. But at the end of the, I mean, I guess it would have been better than her sitting around because some museum ships, like we take care of a lot of our museum ships now, but apparently some museum ships were left in a pretty rotten condition. So I mean, I guess I don't know. I really wish we
Could
would
you
have saved her,
repeat
but
could you repeat the original question?
I guess if we're done with this
We
side
aren't even.
tangent,
We already. I don't even know what the question is anymore.
yeah.
At this
Well,
point,
I
we've
never
gone
really
so
got
far off.
to answer it. But if we're done with the side tangent, does anyone have any?
If
I don't even
I
remember what
would
the
say
question was.
the
Yeah, because I didn't finish asking it. Also, the scrapping of HMS Warspite was a tragedy. Let's see, where are some other tragedies? I don't know. We could discuss this. Maybe we can go on. We'll go on a tangent with the next question, probably. Okay. So, does anyone have any thoughts on the tangent before I actually answer or ask the question?
the scrapping of the Kaiserliche Marine after World War One was a great tragedy because the Germans had some very beautiful warships in there.
Oh
yeah, but
yeah, there was what was the ex Goban was still around in like the 1960s, and the Turks offered to sell it to or give it or sell it or give it to West Germany as a museum, and they were like, "Nah." It's like
Well, that's
you
because West Germany was infested by godless Republicans sponsored by the American regime in Washington. Yuck.
yeah,
I
it's
I contempt for the West German government. Every American regime that we propped it up.
yeah, it was. It's like. It's weird. I mean that is a weird thing. I mean I'm sorry for keeping us off track, but it's a weird thing. Well, not really sorry, but it's a weird thing with like preservation because like I think it was the 60s or 70s when the Germans were offered the ship back by the Turks who had finally expended all their use out of it. But it was at that time in Britain, and I assume the U.S. because I'm more of an expert on British railway, not an expert, but I'm more of a student of British railway preservation than I am American for one reason or another. Um, and like that was when the preservation movement was really kicking off, and like all these preservationist groups were like going to Barry Scrapyard, and they're like, "Hey, can we buy this?" And the scrapyard owner was like, I don't care. Um, you know, and all this, and then you have like the West German government. They're like, nah, and then you have Enterprise getting scrapped, and it's like, nah, and then it's. I mean, hey, we saved Texas. That's impressive. Although she's kind of falling
man,
apart, but they're fixing her. Okay, I'll give everyone a last chance to speak before I actually ask the question.
if I may, there was a bright side to the scuttling of the German military fleet, and how much of the steel used was considered low background steel. For those of you who don't know, low background steel is a special kind of steel that's made before the Trinity test in 1945. After we started testing nuclear bombs, it released a large amount of radioactive cobalt into the atmosphere. Not enough to harm us, but enough to raise the background radiation of steel that was produced at the time. Now, in order to make radiological instruments, this steel was unusable. So they ended up having to scrap things that were made before 1945 in order to get steel that was capable of being used. Much of this steel was sourced from the scuttled German fleet, and this was used to make priceless radiological equipment that furthered mankind's knowledge of nuclear science.
That is so utilitarian. We didn't have to develop nuclear bombs and unleash that evil Pandora's box in the beginning.
I
Yeah, but
mean,
fun.
yeah, and I mean, but
We didn't unleash a nuclear bomb. Someone, unfortunately, was going to.
well, yeah, but that didn't. I mean, here's the thing with the atomic bomb. I don't necessarily agree with our choice to use it, especially considering the targets we bomb were apparently just so happened to be the centers of Catholicism in Japan. Gee, I wonder if I wonder if that has anything to do with why they were picked. But at the same time, um, but at the same time, at least from the American perspective, it may have been seen as a necessary evil because they were apparently the Purple Hearts issuing today, or at least in terms of the number of Purple Hearts being issued today, all the all the all those Purple Hearts were made in preparation for the invasion of Japan. Like the U.S. Army or the military made more, or the government ordered more Purple Hearts for the invasion of Japan than have been issued since World War II. So that includes Korea, Vietnam. Of course, we haven't gotten to a war on that scale, thankfully. But that's still a chilling statistic. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean we had to use it. And
that also doesn't mean that we had to invade Japan either. There was no like one way or the other. There was also just
peace.
letting peace play out because the Japanese had no offensive capabilities left,
And
and
they oh sorry.
there were several elements
Well, but
within
if
their
you want
government
to get
getting ready
into
to
the
surrender. Like we,
but
we
if you were going to get into the sort of psyche of the Americans here, they bombed Pearl Harbor.
Well,
oh
yeah, but I mean,
god,
there's a different.
the boomer truth
There is a
regime.
okay. There is a difference. Uh, there is a difference between bombing and military installation. Now, don't get me wrong. The Japanese shouldn't have. I mean, this is really one of those, who started it situations in history, because the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and they said they bombed Pearl Harbor because, uh, uh, they bombed Pearl Harbor because the Americans had given their fuel uh, or because the Americans had their oil embargo.
It was a lot of reasons before that too. Like we did step on their toes a lot, and we brought a lot of cultural entropy to Japan through our finance. And the government that took over in the 1930s was explicit in getting rid of these toxic American subversions from Japan.
And
Uh,
it is important to know that apparently, and this is I'm trying to remember from reading Charles Colombo's Puritan's Empire, in a Catholic perspective on American history. Apparently, the Japanese offered us. They said, okay, we'll pull out of China if you release the fuel embargo, and we said, nah, you know, and the Japan. I mean, and once the Japanese realized they couldn't win the war, they were willing to. They wanted to secure a conditional surrender, because the Japanese, they obviously wanted to keep the emperor and everything, and you might say, I don't know, unconditional surrender only I can only see unconditional surrender as being moral if you're dealing with an unconditional evil. Now, yes, did the Japanese army commit atrocities? Most assuredly. Uh, but I mean, it's not like the Japanese army was literally, I mean, it's not like the Japanese army was literally demons or anything, or the Japanese people were, we were fighting a nation of demons. We were fighting a nation of people, and I mean, yeah, I mean,
Well,
I don't know.
we should also point out that we committed atrocities through our very own Japanese American people out of a false sense of insecurity about their loyalties to the American nation. We
Yeah,
placed the Japanese Americans in internment camps because we were so deathly afraid that they would sneak secrets back to Japan.
yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, the whole. I mean, look, okay, we can argue who was worse or who was worse than the other, but I will, and this isn't me trying to be some like big brain centrist or whatever by saying both side bad. Um, but I mean, the fact remains is that a conditional surrender of the Japanese would have probably saved us lives, because we wouldn't have had, because if we had just, if the Japanese, if we had accepted the Japanese overtures of peace when they were bleh, when they were first proposed, then I can't remember when it was, like, maybe it was like like late 44, early 45. Then we could have saved a whole lot of servicemen. A whole lot of servicemen may have been able to come home. And a whole lot of Japanese servicemen would have been able to come home, and some Japanese civilians wouldn't have died in either air bombings or on some of the islands that we took. This I think this was before the Japanese overtures of peace, but on Saipan, a lot of the Japanese civilians killed themselves rather than surrender to us because they thought that they thought our troops were monsters or something.
No. It wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was because of Bushido culture. It is seen in that sort of Japanese culture more honorable to take your own life than it is to surrender to your enemy.
Well, I'm not denying that, but there was also it was both sides. I mean, like in a war, both sides are going to use propaganda, and I think that there were a lot of Japanese civilians on Saipan probably fell victim to this mentality that we were going to do all these sorts of horrible things to them. And it is. I don't know. I mean, the whole. I don't know. The Pacific War, well, World War II in general is a grand tragedy, simply because of how many people ended up, getting killed, and the fact that at the end of it we defeated the Nazis, great, but at the same time the Soviets were left standing and they were in control of Eastern Europe. But anyways, that's beside the point. It's getting away from the fun element. But I mean, I'll say, I guess, to wrap up, we should have taken, the Japanese. We should have taken their offers of peace. Because it would have saved more lives. And you'll say, well, what about the war criminals? Well, we let all the war criminals off the hook anyways, because we wanted the Japanese as a buffer against the Soviets. So I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah. I mean, obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of Americans didn't want to just let the Japanese war criminals off the hook, which may have had to happen with the conditional surrender. But I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, which isn't really exactly the most useful thing, it's a.
But we can't analyze these decisions with the benefit of hindsight.
Well, yeah, I know, but at the same time, the American. I mean, I'm sure there were some American leaders who were already thinking, what are we going to do? Do we want the Japanese as a buffer? I'm sure there were some Americans who were high up enough to make foreign policy decisions who were preparing for this sort of dealio. I mean, that just seems. It seems. Given that very publicly, we and the Soviets and the British were drawing up plans for what Europe would look like after the war. You know, that's all there really is to say about that. If anyone else has anything to say before I can actually move on to question 2, then that'd be great.
Well, I think that personally, it is it if the options there was no negotiating with Japan for peace whatsoever.
Bo- Boomer
They
Truth
offered
Regime,
peace. They
no, they
wanted
offered it.
they wanted an out. I mean, the Japanese
Well,
the Japanese
of course, the Japanese sent an offer of peace, but in the American sort of political mindset, there was no negotiation. The
Yeah,
well, yeah,
Japanese
and
were
the
going to
American,
surrender.
the Germans and the Japanese and the Italians all thought that America could be rational and come to peace. They sent several peace overtures to all. Well, the English-speaking world is made up of, quite frankly, overzealous liberals, and that's why they couldn't essentially morally bring themselves, oh, we're gonna send our men to be slaughtered instead of seeking peace, which is the right thing to do with our enemies.
yeah.
That's why I despise the Anglo.
Yeah, the thing is that, and that's actually probably one of the reasons why the Stauffenberg coup failed, was because there were some who were afraid that the Americans, or maybe there were some who thought that, you know, the idea was that okay, they would take over the government, and then they would get a peace with the Allies, probably with withdraw from France and whatnot, but maybe argue to keep Alsace-Lorraine or make it a separate buffer state or something. But the plans weren't necessarily that concrete. Um, but I guess maybe there were some who thought this isn't going to work because these guys are probably going to steamroll us no matter what. Um, yeah, that's. I don't. I don't know. Once again, unconditional surrender could be used, but only if you're going against an unconditional evil. and National Socialism as an ideology is pretty evil. But the German state, but the Germany as a nation isn't necessarily that evil. So we don't know what would have happened. If what the Americans would have done if the Stauffenberg plot succeeded, because maybe the Allies would have seen it as
No,
an
no,
easy out.
they wouldn't have, because FDR had no intentions upon negotiation. This is very much Morgenthau, which held a lot of the strings in Roosevelt's administration. He had absolute plans of genocide, which against the German people, which Roosevelt agreed with. It was only Truman that kind of didn't want to go along with the genocide, but still wanted to pursue the absolutist position of unconditional surrender from all enemies.
Yeah, really the whole, I don't know, the way that
Literally, Morgenthau, he was the finance secretary in the cabinet, which, despite his title, he had a lot more power than you think of. He had a plan that Roosevelt agreed with to completely deindustrialize Germany back down to an agrarian society, along with also genociding a third of the German population, which effectively American Bomber Command was already doing at the same time. But
yeah, just because the Luftwaffe bombed British cities doesn't give
no,
us the right to bomb
when
theirs.
okay, so
Anyway,
actually,
let's go back to.
The British started the bombings of civilian targets in World War II. They bombed Berlin to provoke the Germans to bomb London, and after, because Hitler made it a prohibition to bomb civilian city centers by the Luftwaffe until the British deliberately started bombing German cities.
It was a good thing the British did.
No, in a
Let's
war.
get back. Let's go back to actually asking the question that we've been waiting for so long for.
Okay,
Alright,
I'll
we'll get
just.
to it.
Okay, yeah. I'll just say this. Targeting civilians in a war, bad. Enemy does it first, still bad. Don't do it. Okay, that's just a little bit of just war theory for you. All right, a whole 30 minutes after we started this tangent. Wait, was someone gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, given that World War II was an industrial war and each of the nation's war machines were dependent on civilian industries to produce war material, the line between what is a civilian target and military target is actually rather blurred.
That is still an evil saying right there. The law of double effect applies.
Yeah,
It's you cannot commit an evil to pursue our good. That is not a thing.
yeah. All right. So now we can get 31 minutes. Okay. So the question. Okay, so imagine we have a preserved steam locomotive and we're replacing all the parts, right? Until eventually we have the what do you call it? Until eventually you have all the worn parts and you reassemble them to create a machine. And then you have the machine that we've been replacing the parts off of, right? So we have the preserved locomotive where we're taking off the parts that have been worn out. Which is the locomotive? So like, let's say we're doing this Flying Scotsman, right? Eventually we get replace the boiler and do all this, that, and the other. Okay, which one is Flying Scotsman? The thing that's made up of a bunch of parts that used to be on Flying Scotsman, or the locomotive that we've been, that's been running this entire time? And I'll start with Prussian because we're going to go in the same order.
What was the question again?
Okay. So, very
It's
simple.
the Theseus ship
It's
question.
no. It's not. It's not a ship of Theseus question per se, because this is different. Because this is adding another dimension to it, right? So, okay, but I can use the ship of Theseus. Okay, so imagine you're doing the ship of Theseus,
Mhm.
but as opposed to just throwing away the boards or whatever, the parts of the ship you're replacing, you're keeping those to one side, and then you reassemble a ship using the components you threw away or you replaced, right?
Okay.
So you have a
What was the
worn out
question?
ship or a worn out locomotive or a worn out something that made up of parts that you previously threw away.
Okay, what's the question?
So the question is, which is that thing? Like if you have the locomotive, if you have the locomotive, which is the locomotive? Because the locomotive is a thing, right? Which is the locomotive? Or which is the ship? The one that's made up of worn parts that used to be on it, or the one that's made up of, or the one that's been being used and had parts replaced?
So which one do people believe it is then? Because it's fundamentally of dialectics, because both of them are trains. Which one's the original? Only the people who say the original one is.
Okay, I have
It-
my opinion, but I'll wait for other people to express theirs.
Hmm,
I mean it's
no,
Prussian.
good.
I mean it's trying to think about how to explain this. It doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
a boat. It's a train. The example of the ship of Theseus, it's still his ship. Just because he completely replaced it over time doesn't mean that it's not his ship. It's still his ship. It's that's legally speaking, like it's still his. It doesn't matter if it's been changed over time, because just because it's been completely rebuilt from when it left, it doesn't mean anything, because guess what? A piece could have been put on right after he left. So just the age of it, it doesn't matter.
All right.
I kind of think that the Theseus ship question is kind of redundant. That's why I'm answering it like that. I just think it's kind of redundant because it's still the same thing.
Yeah, I mean this is mainly about the
In the end, it's still the exact same thing. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah. So, Vic.
Do not have an opinion on this. Let's move on to the next person.
Well, okay, Will.
It's kind of irrelevant because even if the train that was made of the replacement parts could be considered the original train, that train isn't functioning. So if it's
Well,
not
no. The one that has the one that has replacement parts is functioning. The one that's made of replaced parts isn't, because obviously those parts are worn.
okay, so if one of them isn't functionable, then the question is irrelevant because the one made of the old parts can't be used as a train, and so whether or not it's the original train is irrelevant because it's not the train that's going to be used.
Okay. Darth.
I
You're
mean,
the most you're the most philosophical, so you can obviously
as,
take this like
as,
pseudo
as,
armchair philosophy and
as I said, it's just a game of dialectics. Like ultimately, like which train is truly like the train, um, is up to people's essentially belief on which one is the train and which one that they can tell other people that this is the original train or that one is the original train and win the game of dialectics. So no, it really doesn't matter.
I honestly thought that this would I don't know why I thought this would get more discussion, but okay. Well,
It didn't. You failed.
I admit it was kind of it's just a question that popped into my head a couple days ago, and I thought, so I guess I'll just state my opinion and move on. The tangent was much funner, even though we got to some pretty dark stuff. But anyways, my opinion is that the one that is made of replacement parts is still the original machine, because even when a locomotive or a ship or whatever was in service, they would always replace parts from it. Like Flying Scotsman, which is the most famous locomotive in the world, arguably, its boiler isn't the original boiler she had. She was built as an A1, and then she had an A3 boiler put on later, and that isn't even the same boiler that she had when she became when she was upgraded to an A3. Well, upgraded in terms of performance, not necessarily visuals. But anyways, so that's, I mean, so for me, the one that has replacement parts that's been actually doing things is it. Although I guess there could also be an argument for essentially mitosis. Mitosis is when two cells split, right? Or is that meiosis? Whatever. Anyways, I don't really care. Anyways, so there could be an argument for meiosis, and then we keep doing this progressively over a couple centuries, and then you just have like 4 worn out A1 or A3 class locomotives, all sitting in a museum somewhere, all with a claim to being Flying Scotsmen, and that is, I want to see that future. I won't live to see it, even if somebody started implementing this right now, because some parts won't wear out for decades. But I want to see that future.
To answer your question, technically mitosis and meiosis both involve the splitting of the cell, but rather mitosis involves the complete duplication of all the chromosomes, and meiosis just involves randomly dividing up all the chromosomes within the cell. Meiosis is only used for making reproductive cells.
Oh, was it biology? It's all coming back to me. Oh, okay. Okay. So, no one else has any thoughts on this question, which I kind of realize is kind of probably not the best to ask. No. Okay. So the next question, though, is a real doozy. All right. Okay. Of all the presidents of this great republic, which one wasn't the best, wasn't the worst, but was the most meh? And I'm going to say you can't have the ones that had a rule of less than a year or so. So you know, they who was that president who died shortly after being, who like was dead like what, 2 weeks after being
William Henry
inaugurated?
Harrison.
Harrison. Okay. Yeah. So uh,
Objectively, this is Calvin Coolidge, who basically did nothing for the 8 years he was president, because he was president during the Roaring Twenties, and there basically was nothing he needed to do.
well,
And
I mean,
I disagree. I disagree. I think Calvin Coolidge was a very good president because
Ye-
of the fact that he didn't do a lot. He was
well,
the only president who ever actually shrunk the federal government. Like, I'm not saying I'm a libertarian here, because I'm not, but at the same time, it's just like,
I know, I'm just saying, his presidency was boring. Nothing eventful happened. And that was why.
I mean, there was
well,
one thing that was actually kind of important that he did. He gave Native Americans actual citizenship.
oh,
Yeah.
That's
uh,
kind of important.
yeah, I'd
No,
say that's
that's a tragedy. We should revoke it again
wait, why?
because they effectively run their own fiefs. They have their own. They literally call themselves their own nation. So why not just extend that further? And oh yeah, you are your own nations. Here you go. Now you no longer have U.S. citizenship. Good luck.
That is
Okay.
a horrible idea.
I'm joking, of course, with that, but I
Really
sound
hard. So you
serious.
sounded extremely serious there.
Darth
Good
only
thing I
has
called
one.
you out
Darth
there.
only has like one mode. He only sounds serious. Well,
I'm-
it's either really serious or like obviously sarcastic. He can't be like serious space sarcastic. Anyways,
I have to be like HK-47, where I say sarcasm. What do you mean? Like, and then go on to say, have any of you played KOTOR?
no, I'm not.
So it stands for Knights of
It's
the
the
Old
old
Republic.
Republic. Yes, I
Yeah.
know, but I have yet to play KOTOR. Let's see. Oh wait, what was I gonna say? It was something about Oh, it was something about Coolidge. I will say this about the Roaring Twenties. You did have the guy who was in charge of the Federal Reserve, and he kept inflating the currency supply, which led to the '29 crash. So, and also the availability of cheap credit. That's a story for another time. But anyways, Victor, who is your most meh president?
My most president. I'm gonna have to go with a dude who you might not think was meh, but let's go with the let's go with Polk.
You mean the guy who did the Mexican American War thing?
Yeah.
Why? That kind of seems like
Eh,
something, depending on your stance, is either a really bad thing or a really great thing.
because it was gonna happen regardless of who was president, because the Manifest Destiny was such an overwhelmingly favorite thing amongst the American political zeitgeist at the time.
Hmm. Okay, but like, is there anything specifically about his administration in other terms that was meh?
Well, like the fact that we don't even know what he did other than that war, which was going to happen anyway.
Um, let's do a quick lay Wikipedia, because obviously Wikipedia is the source and summit of all truth.
Don't forget,
Unless it comes for the definition of recession.
Oh, let's see.
they changed the definition of recession, then locked the page, so nobody can put it back to the old definition.
Wait, did they actually?
Yes,
Yes,
they
they
did.
did.
No way.
Let's see.
No way.
They. Oh,
And
that's.
every single other dictionary
Oh
has
my.
also changed the definition of recession.
Okay, well, I mean, they already changed the definition of inflation to an increase in the currency supply to the rise of prices, so they could shift the blame from, the government central bank onto the private sector. But anyway, but hold on, let's see let's see let's see what Let's see, what did he. Let's see, domestic policy, fiscal policy. In his inaugural address, Polk called upon Congress to reestablish the independent Treasury system under which government funds were held in the Treasury and not in banks or other financial institutions. President Van Buren had previously established a similar system but had been abolished during the Tyler administration. Polk made clear his opposition to a national bank in his inaugural address, kind of based, and his first annual message to Congress in December 1845. He called for the government to keep its funds itself. Congress was slow to act. I mean, when isn't it? And the House passed a bill in April 1846 and the Senate in August, both without a single Whig vote. Polk signed the Independent Treasury Act into law on August 6, 1846. The act provided that the public revenues were to be retained in the Treasury building and in the sub-treasuries in various cities, separate from private or state banks. The system would remain in place until the passage of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Hey, speaking of the Feds, Polk's other major domestic initiative was the lowering of the tariff. Polk directed the Secretary of Treasury Robert Walker to draft a new and lower tariff, which Polk submitted to Congress. This is all from Wikipedia. Okay, yeah, so he did. I mean, he was against a bank, so I guess that was pretty cool. Let's see. What other things did he do? Polk's ambassador to the Republic of New Granada. Okay.
Like I said, meh.
Okay. So, Will, who's your most meh president? Will?
I already said Coolidge.
Oh, I thought that was
Yes,
Dixie who
he
said
already said.
Coolidge.
So
Oh, Dixie. Who's your
then
most meh
we
president? We
should
went
go
in
to
wrong
Darth.
order. No, but didn't.
My most meh president. No, I know who it is. Rutherford B. Hayes.
Why?
Wait.
That's a good one.
nothing. There's nothing actually about him. It was like, other than the fact that the election that he was elected in was pretty was rife with possible fraud, and then the only thing he actually did was save Paraguay from getting annexed, and that wasn't even for the U.S. anyways. It wasn't even nobody cared about that for us.
Oh, yeah,
why,
don't they have-
that's why, yeah, they have statues of
Him
him
and
in
Paraguay,
Paraguay.
yeah. I think they'd like have a holiday for him.
Maybe, you know what? Okay, so, you know those alternate history timelines that aren't supposed to be taken seriously. Just like the
Yeah.
fun ones, like why did Mr. Krabs join the Axis powers? I think that somebody needs to make something on what if the Hayes family became the kings of
Paraguay.
Paraguay. Like imagine like they become
It's
and they're
crowned the
fully
king of
integrated in it. They
Paraguay.
become like they become like glorious Catholic monarchs, and then rather than being annexed, they annex all their neighbors, and it's the glorious kingdom
I don't
of
think
Paraguay.
problem with that theory, Charles. Hayes was not a Catholic.
I know. That's why I said the family becomes Catholic. I mean, it's not supposed to be taken seriously.
Well, it was literally the Jesuit colony of Paraguay back in the Spanish Empire.
And that was back when the Jesuits were still based and cared about converting people. I'm
Yeah,
sure. Well, I mean, there's still some Jesuits who are like that, obviously. But
most of the Native Americans that were converted to Catholicism in America were converted by Jesuits. I know because in my area, Montana, literally like the vanguard force was Jesuits coming to the Native American tribes, and all the parishes around here were founded by Jesuits.
Interesting, especially considering what happened in the Great White North this week. But let's get
that's next week because
to
that was that makes my
yes.
blood boil. What happened? Anyways,
Let's get to
okay.
let's
Well, no, I
enough
gotta
next
find my
week.
most met precedent. Okay, this is a hard one. Now, I want to be bold here. I want to be very bold here, and I don't necessarily agree with what I'm about to say because I can't
No.
really think of a truly meh president. Because to me, I don't know. I haven't looked into it truly, but I'm sure every president is going to have something that's tips the scales for me in one way or the other. But I'm gonna say just because of the one really cool thing that he did, but then kind of all the bad things that he did along the way. I'm gonna say, and once again, I don't necessarily agree with this opinion. I'm gonna say just because of the extremes clashing together to form madness. Lincoln. Okay,
That
I was waiting. I was waiting for the.
What?
Okay, there it is.
I agree. He is a
is
pretty mad president.
That's very controversial.
I know. That's why I said it. That's why I.
Well, what do you mean this is controversial? He was very meh. Like,
Okay.
besides that, he
it's seen
endorsed
as
Marxism.
it's seen as controversial because
Well, no,
most
he's just saying
historians rank Lincoln as one of the top 2 or top 3 presidents of all
he
time.
was being sarcastic.
Yes.
No, actually, I'm not. I view all American presidents as meh. So when my answer is, as I said, all American presidents are meh.
Yeah. So why I view he okay no okay so Joe was like he's on Mount Rushmore because he preserved our union. Okay, preserving the union and helping to end slavery. Okay, those are some those are good things. Once I think I said last week that I don't think that I really wanted I would have wanted the union to be preserved, but I probably wouldn't want it preserved at the barrel of a gun by the barrel of a gun. But okay, so those are cool. But then his suspension of habeas corpus, his extension of the federal bureaucracy, the draft thing. I mean, I don't know. there's a lot about Lincoln where it's. I mean, he almost selected a Catholic as his VP, but like some army officer or somebody who was supposed to pass on the message just really didn't like the guy. So Lincoln never got a response back because the guy he offered it to never received the offer in the first place. So that's another somewhat more plausible alternate history scenario right there. But I don't know. I can't remember the guy's name, and I don't know much about him personally. He may have been an Americanist, or he may have actually tried to be a Catholic, ruler. But whatever. But that's a more plausible alternate history scenario. So I mean, but I will say that Lincoln, he had Top Hat. I like Top Hat. I think Top Hat is good. I much support. But just because of the extremity, of all these different negative aspects to his rule, and the fact that he preserved the Union by the barrel of a gun. I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, and once again, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with this opinion. Okay. I just had to think of something because I don't really know that much about a lot of U.S. presidents. All right. So who is anybody here not stating an opinion? Because Preston has probably his Wi-Fi may have died or something. Hold on. Okay. So yeah. So Preston left us. Okay. So does anyone else have anything to say?
I got nothing.
Yeah, no.
All right. Question the fourth. Okay, this is one that's going to take all your intellectual muscle. Thoughts on the Oxford comma?
I
Vic?
don't care.
You don't care? Don't you know that the Oxford comma is a Masonic invention?
Okay.
I don't know.
It's like okay, so does everybody know what the Oxford comma is
Do I
before we get to people's answers?
do I even care? That's my question.
Okay, so the Oxford comma is one of those.
Things.
It's a quirk of the English language where you put a comma after the second to last item in an ordered list of 3 or more things.
That
And
sounds stupid.
Well, yeah. So no,
my
it's like so to give a more simple example, with an Oxford comma, if you had the sentence Bob, Bill, and Jeff, spelled G-O because of golf. Anyways, you would have the comma after Bill, so Bob, comma Bill, comma and Jeff. Whereas it's also grammatically correct. You just have Bob, comma Bill, and Jeff. Because the extra comma was a Masonic invention to use more ink.
I don't care about the Oxford comma, Charles. I
Okay, I
literally
just
do
wanted
not
this to
care.
be a fun episode. You know what? Okay, you know what? I admit that I probably could have picked better questions, so I will skip over 5 and 7, and we will go straight to question the 6 if nobody has anything to say.
What's 5 and 7? You can't just go and skip questions.
Okay, okay, you know what? Nobody has any thoughts on question 4? I'll go question 5 then, okay? If it's boring, that's on you. Alright. Do you prefer American or British spelling?
I
British.
prefer American spelling because I hate the extra U's that serve no purpose.
I
Well, they were
prefer the
there
British.
originally, and then they were removed.
American spelling because British spelling is just French spelling but with extra steps.
Boo.
Boo!
French.
Darth and I have formed a coalition. Bleep the Webster dictionary.
You must embrace the British aristocratic soul. Come on.
Nobody likes the French and nobody
I
likes.
have more of a claim. I have more of a claim to
No.
British aristocratic soul than anybody else on this panel, but it's very tenuous.
Well, yeah, but you see, what's happened is that throughout the years they've tried to beat it out of and so
It's not.
really
It's color, not color.
it's color. There's a U. Okay, it's also spelled donut. I mean, even my mom used to when she was being brought up, they still spelled it DOUGH.
Is
I
there
mean,
another way to?
That is completely
that's a
unrelated
British. Yes, it
to.
is. No, it's related because the British still spell it donut, and we're lazy and just spell it DO.
Okay,
So
I
the
have
British spelling is
absolutely.
more complete.
They added extra letters that do
No, no, no,
nothing
no. We
to
removed
modern
letters.
pronunciation.
We
Well,
removed letters.
still need another vowel because in order for dough to say its name, we need a second vowel to be grammatically correct. Otherwise, it should be do not donut.
Well,
Okay, I'll concede that.
dough.
Go, a deer, a female deer,
Okay.
Oh,
a
quiet.
Okay, no,
Jefferson's
stop.
son.
Okay, so I cannot believe that this has been the most fiery discussion all night. Not the World War II thing. Not my statement about Lincoln. This is my most.
Okay.
This is the most controversial thing.
Your statement about Lincoln was fundamentally wrong, but let's not go.
No, you are fundamentally wrong. Lincoln is meh.
Except the top hat. He probably is. He's probably the best in that regard. But
No,
okay,
it's still pathetic.
yeah, it could have been taller. And we will admit that Jefferson Davis did send the Pope at the time, who I can't remember which Pope it was. He did send the Pope a cowboy hat.
I think it was Leo the 13th.
I thought Pope Leo XIII came. Either way, the Pope at the time did get a cowboy hat from Jefferson Davis. There's actually a picture of him
Let's
wearing
get
it.
to the next. Interesting. Does anyone have any final thoughts before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, well, it's never mind.
Let's go.
Okay, nobody has any thoughts. Okay, so now we're getting into a more personal opinion question. Okay, what is one movie that you really like that everyone else seems to hate, or vice versa? One movie that you really hate that everyone else seems to love. So we'll start with Vic, I guess.
Now this is a good question, Charles. A very good question, and I will take the movie that I like that basically everyone else doesn't like, and knowing the state of this panel, I think I can answer this with absolute confidence and give my answer as the all-time classic Major League.
What?
You don't know what Major League is?
The only sports movie I know is Air Buds.
If you're
And
ever in Baltimore, I
that's
am
Baltimore.
going to educate you over an entire weekend of just binging sports movies.
Oh please no! I can't. I hate regular sports. I can't be forced. You can't force me to watch people play sports, or even act to play sports. You can't. You can't. There's no. There's no acting method that can save that concept of a film for me. You can't. I don't care if you get LeBron James himself to be an actor. Which wasn't he in the Looney Tunes Space Jam, or was that someone else? Anyways. Oh,
Michael
that's another sports
Jordan.
movie I know. See, I know sports movies.
Well, that is that's only because it was so popular in the mainstream. Now, I will ask you if you've ever heard of Kevin Costner before.
The name sounds familiar, but was he like an anchor or something?
He's an actor in a whole lot of sports movies.
Oh,
And by the way, I will correct you. It was Pius IX, the Pope you're referring to.
you mean corrected yourself?
Yes, corrected myself. Sorry. So does anybody we want to react to my answer of Major League, or is it just going to be Charles saying that he doesn't like sports movies in general?
I don't know the movie. I have no opinion on it. I haven't seen it. For all I know, it could be the greatest movie ever, and the acting is flawless, or maybe another piece of trash. I don't know. I'm not gonna. Has anyone here actually seen it besides Vic?
I think he might be the only one.
Okay. Will, have you seen it?
Seen what?
Have you seen Major League?
No, I haven't seen Major League.
Okay, Vic, let's give you another shot at this. What's a movie that you hate that everyone seems to love?
All right. 101 Dalmatians.
How can you?
How dare you? How
How
dare you?
you?
How dare you? Wait, the live action remake or the animated one? Because I'm assuming the live action remake was probably trash, but
The action remake.
well, the animated one's chill though, right? You like the animated one?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I'm not too sure, but I don't think many people actually like the live action one. This is before Disney really started so that doesn't count. Come on. Give us a movie that everyone loves that you hate. Like I know you haven't seen Star Wars, so you can't have controversial opinions about any of the trilogies, but
Right. So, and all right. How about we do Finding Nemo?
you hate that movie?
Like, it's a movie about fish in the sea. If I wanted to watch a show about fish in the sea, I'd watch SpongeBob.
Well, yeah, but that hits. Okay, that's like saying if I wanted to watch, that's like somebody saying, "Nah, I don't want to watch this. I want to watch Railway Roundabout," which is a show like that was filming like British locomotives in operation in the '60s or late '50s or '60s or whatever. If I wanted to watch a show about the locomotives, I watched Thomas the Tank Engine. I mean, those are two. They're in general about locomotives, but those are two very different shows. Like SpongeBob is supposed to be just a light-hearted comedy and a commentary on the socioeconomic status of Bikini Bottom, whereas Finding Nemo is supposed to be a way of making fun of Australian dentists. I mean, these are two pieces of media that are taking the similar base material and going in completely different directions. And also, Finding Nemo is about a father finding his son and being a good dad and trying to, make sure that his son's around and doing his best after the mother was murdered. But anyways,
I want to share a cursed fact about clownfish now that we're talking about that, but I know you like to keep things.
yes. We don't need to talk about that. Okay.
Oh, so you know what?
Oh, we don't need to talk about it. Okay. Darth, do you have any reactions to the Finding Nemo thing?
I don't really care. It's a kids movie.
Okay. So,
I can
Vic,
show
I mean,
you
Will.
the
Okay.
world.
Vic. Sorry, no, I'm saying Vic. Why am I saying Vic? Well, I keep getting you too confused. Okay, Will. What is one movie that you really love that everyone seems to hate, or one movie that you really hate that everyone seems to love? And since I let since I let Vic answer both questions, you guys don't sound the same. Your profile pictures are not the same at all. I don't know why I keep confusing you. Either way, you can answer the question.
All right, a movie that I love but everyone seems to hate would have to be what's his name? He played Batman and
He was on ER.
Ed Affleck. I liked him as Daredevil. I'm not gonna lie. I like that Daredevil movie. That seems to be a controversial opinion, but I thought it was pretty good. And the one movie I hate, but everyone absolutely seems to love, is Bambi. I hate
What?
Bambi.
Man, we're just spitting out controversial Disney opinions, aren't we?
Deer. I cheered for the hunter. I used to get mad at the hunter when I was younger because he couldn't hit the deer. Save his life. I just wanted him to kill stupid freaking deer so I could stop watching that awful movie.
Language. Okay. Wow. I haven't seen it yet. So, what about Thumper? Did you want Thumper to be shot with a varmint rifle?
No, Thumper didn't get shot with the varmint rifle.
No. Did you want him to get shot with a varmint rifle?
No, Thumper was one of the redeemable qualities of that movie. He was actually a little entertaining.
Okay. Wow. Okay, Darth. What's a controversial? Okay, I have a
It's your
feeling that you're.
controversial movie take, Darth.
Yeah. One movie that you really hate, and one that everyone seems to love, and one movie you really love that everyone seems to hate. Okay.
One movie I really hate. Ooh. I probably hate that movie that was made about the Red Baron. That was done in English. I
There were a
forget.
couple of them, weren't there?
Well, I'm talking about the newer one.
Charlie Brown movie?
What?
Was it the Charlie Brown movie
No,
about the
No.
Red
he's
Baron?
there was
No,
an
the
actual
actual
docu,
Red
actually.
Baron. Okay. But they portrayed the Kaiser as a deranged tyrant, and pro-war in that movie. That's why I hate it. When in fact Kaiser Wilhelm II was the complete opposite of all that, and my German bone is ticking every time I see that Anglo-American interpretation of the German Emperor.
Oh, was that the one where the Red Baron meets the Manfred von Richthofen meets the Kaiser and
In a
it
bunker.
ends with give this man a parachute or something? I seem to remember that movie,
yeah.
or let's say bits and pieces. Like, is it the
Yeah,
one where it
it-
starts off with the Red Baron flying over and dropping a reef at some British aviator's funeral? Okay.
Yeah. Like it's been so long since I watched it, but like I distinctly remember like that's why I hate that film. And then film that I like that other people don't. I don't really have one. I mean, unless we're going by like what critics hated but the audience liked.
I
Then
guess
That is
to
is
fulfill the category, you might as well.
I
Because
mean,
I meant more. I mean, I guess I meant more like everyone seems to hate it, but I guess you gotta give your full answer.
I liked Joker even though the critics hated it.
What?
All right.
Cares about the critics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to give Darth a chance to. I'm all
The
about
only
equal
people, the
opportunity
only
here.
people, the only people who actually care about what critics think
Yeah,
are the people that are nominating for the Oscars, and even then, some of the Oscars voters don't even watch the movies they're voting on.
What's
yeah,
the
I
most
know.
woke by the trailer? Um. Let's see. I guess let's see. For me, one movie that I like, I love, despite everyone hating it. Apparently, a lot of people hate The Emperor's New Groove, and my family will like it. But like the general perception I get online when I see it discussed is people either are like meh or they just don't like it, and I don't know why because now sure it's not the best from a monarchist standpoint because the Emperor's like portrayed as a whiny brat, uh but I don't know, like the character, but like but the characters are fun, like Yzma and Kronk, and
Oh,
all the characters. I don't know. I don't know. It's just like the general perception I get online is meh, and I don't.
really? I don't. I like the Emperor's New Groove, and if we really want to talk about the monarchist perspective, I say it's pro-monarchist because it's
Which
about.
we already did. We already did discuss the monarchist element of the Emperor's New Groove in an earlier episode of the show.
But it kind of, it's one of those things that bears repeating, like our Protestant bashing.
Yes.
Anyways,
Wait, we haven't done our dose of Protestant bashing yet.
Well, we can. We'll maybe it'll come up later. We want to work it in organically, like or like our state, right? Or like
Let's
our ideal state. But anyways, Will, what were you gonna say about how it apparently is pro monarchy?
It was about Kutsko learning to properly take on his role as emperor of his empire. He was always treated as like the spoiled child, and that he lived a life of privilege that didn't come with any responsibility. But when he was humbled and turned into a llama, he had to face the realities of his people, and that changed his perspective and outlook.
I mean, well, I will advocate for the emperor. There is the emperor has a fundamentally different duty. I mean, he has a different. Essentially, his mission in life is something other than the peasant, especially if you're talking about like the Peruvian idea of the emperor, which is more a spiritual post instead of a temporal post. Kind of like how the emperor of Japan was not really a temporal leader, but more the spiritual. Um, he was there for the spiritual leadership. So, that's my one defense of the emperor in the Emperor's New Groove.
Let's see. The song, not we're not gonna sing it because of copyright. I mean he's the king of the world. The king of. I mean that was fun. Let's see. Okay, one movie that I hate that everyone seems to love. Okay, I'm gonna kind of cheat a little bit, and I don't. It's not necessarily that I'm gonna cheat on a couple elements. It's not necessarily that I hate these movies. I just think that they're bad, and also it's. Mm, and also, I'm also saying a trilogy. Okay, I don't understand why everyone suddenly thinks that the Star Wars prequel trilogy is a masterwork all of a sudden. Like, okay, I get it. The sequels are bad. Okay, but okay. I'm gonna take you back to a time before The Force Awakens was released. Okay, and the universal consensus of the near universal consensus of the Star Wars community was prequels bad but meme potential, like the movies. We're not talking about like the Clone Wars, which is which is a pretty fun show. Like especially how it kind of accidentally highlights the stupidity of Republic with all the stupid bureaucratic nonsense that that the show forces you to deal with sometimes. But it's like, why are we rooting for the Republic again? But anyways,
Never root for the Republic.
but anyways, yes, let's create a giant army of clones whose only purpose is to fight and die, and they have no say in the matter. Yay, the good guys. Um, but okay, I'm only talking about the movies here. Okay, but everybody seemed to think the movies were bad, but they were meme potential. But then The Force Awakens comes out, and everyone hails them as like the greatest thing since sliced bread. Okay, now I don't know about you, but sliced bread is a pretty hard bar to beat. I mean, like the internet comes close, but the convenience of sliced bread, I think, tops it. But anyways, okay, so it's like everybody seems to love these things, and it's like whatever happened to the the line "I don't like sand." Okay, it's rough, it's coarse, it gets everywhere. Okay, that's not good dialogue. It's not a good. That's not a good movie. That's okay. It's good for meme potential, but what makes a good meme doesn't necessarily make a good movie. Okay, Lord of the Rings is a good movie. It's a good trilogy of movies. Okay, it also has good memes, but um, but she but just because it's I don't know, good movie doesn't necessarily mean good memes. Okay, now maybe because as a society we've become so focused on memes that quality is rated in amount of memes per frame, or something like that, potential meme formats per frame or per minute or per scene or whatever. Uh, Maybe that's why. But I just, people are like, Episode 3 is the greatest Star Wars movie, and I will admit, Episode 3 is the only Star Wars movie that I have not watched all the way through. I got halfway through it and then I stopped. Um, okay, and it was, it was a, it wasn't, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. Okay, but I don't. They're not good movies. Okay, 4, 5, and 6, despite the weird Buddhist thing, they're entertaining movies. Okay, the Ewoks are stupid, and the Empire should have committed genocide against
Zen
them.
Buddhism, by the way, is not weird. Just saying for the audience's sake.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Anyways, but okay, the Ewoks are dumb, and there should have been mass genocide committed against the Ewoks.
Yes.
So and the rebels were a bunch of terrorists for continuing their existence when the kindest thing would have been to kill them and sell their meat and give their meat to very low prices to impoverished children or just for free.
Yes. Very much
But
so.
anyways,
I
and the baby Ewoks could have been just turned into stuffed animals. Just saying.
I have something you should watch. You should enjoy this. I'm gonna DM it to you here.
Okay. If it's the Kylo Ren explains episode 6, I've already seen it.
Oh,
Yeah, so yeah, that I don't know. Okay, and if you want to know my opinions on the sequel trilogies, they're not good movies, I don't think, but visually they were impressive. I will say that. Although that's probably partly due to the camera technology. But okay, Disney may be an evil company, but at least they put money into their evil propaganda, so at least it looks pretty. Just turn off the audio and make your own storyline, and it'd probably be better. Let's see. And also, First Order Stormtroopers do not look okay. Even though First Order Stormtroopers are more sleek, I still think the original. I kind of want to say that the first. I don't know. There's something. I don't know. I feel like there's something off about First Order Stormtroopers. I think the originals were nice. Space Vietnam. Space
That
Vietnam.
is a very long and complicated way of saying the 4th, 5th, and 6th Star Wars movie trilogy is is the movie that you hate that everybody else seems
No. The
to
4, 5,
like.
and 6 were good. No. 4, 5, and 6 were good movies. Well, 7, 8, 9. Were kind of lame, but 1, 2, and 3 were bad, but they had
Let's
memes.
okay.
So
All
anyone
right.
have any final thoughts on this question or my answer before we?
nah, I'm good.
All right. So the last question that I have scheduled, is going to be day, month, year, or month, date, year. Okay, this is probably going to be another one of those I don't care questions, but
But no, it goes year, month, day.
okay, Vic.
Reject the false dichotomy. Embrace the third position.
Bleep it. One struggle. Forget third position when it comes to like fascism. Embrace third position on dating systems. The captain's log, star date. How the heck does the star date calendar from Star Trek like actually like work, or is it just some like thing where they just throw out random numbers at the start of every episode? Like, is it an actual calendar?
They developed the science for it, but I'm not
I
going to
don't
look
even
into it.
watch Star Trek, to be perfectly honest. I never got into Star Trek.
I mean, when it was on Netflix and we still had Netflix, and this was years ago, we almost got through the original series, but I think we stopped. My dad, I think my dad's more of a Star Wars fan than a Star Trek fan, but he likes both. He's not. See, the weird thing is like our parents' generation, they didn't necessarily like form into these like universal internet cliques that we have today, where you have to like one thing and hate the other. You could enjoy both. It's a really weird concept for us to understand. I'm not sure I'm not sure I grasp the concept itself. But if there is one thing that never ceases to humor me, it, watch a Star Wars movie with my dad, like one of the original ones, and bring it up to him. At some point, he will go on just this beautiful rant against episodes 1, 2, and 3 because he hates them with a burning passion greater than that of 1,000 suns. and even though it's like the same material every time, and like as you try to explain things, like if you try to explain things to him, that just adds more fuel to the fire, and it's just the greatest thing ever. Uh, but so yeah. But anyways, but
You
yeah.
should have
So
seen. You should have seen the toxicity of the internet in the from the late 2000s to about the mid 2010s during the peak Harry Potter versus Twilight sort of
both are
conflict.
trash and should be burned.
That was a very toxic
Yes,
time.
I agree. With that statement.
I like the movies at least for Harry Potter. You couldn't pay me money to watch Twilight.
Yeah. I mean, well, here's the thing with Harry Potter. Why would you read Harry Potter or watch Harry Potter when you could either read or watch Lord of the Rings or uh, Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, which is
That's because people have no taste these days because their souls have been degraded to this materialistic mush that is calling itself a human being.
I
I
mean,
mean,
broke down and finally watched the Harry Potter movies like 2 or 3 years ago just because everyone I knew had seen them and I said, you know what, I have nothing better to do, so I might as well actually watch them. And you know what? They're not terrible. I like them. There's something to watch, especially if I'm doing chores around the house or something and I need something to run on the TV. But I
mm,
wouldn't say they're phenomenal.
I will say the Harry Potter movies did indirectly do some good because they actually did use a real, I believe it was a Hall class locomotive for it, and apparently uh, the royalties from that help keep the locomotive going, uh, and maybe help the railway that owns it. So I mean that's a positive. So people have another Hall class to look at.
All
So
right.
um
If you don't mind, I would like to ask a question of my own.
uh okay, let me just get out my little timesheet thing and hold on. Copy. Okay. Okay. 142. Okay, now ask your question.
Would you rather fight 100 horse-sized ducks or 100 duck-sized horses?
Wait,
The latter?
wait, 100 horse-sized ducks or 100 duck-sized horses?
I
So,
I think the latter. Jeez,
horses or fight
the
100
a
tiny
hundred
horses is what you
a
said.
hundred tiny horses would be better.
Yeah, I would say 100 tiny horses. I used to raise turkeys. Birds are mean. Birds are
Get it
evil.
wrong, hold on.
Well, hold on though. But horse-sized ducks wouldn't be able to stand upright, I don't think, and they would just fall over because they're too big. So it would just be a case of pushing them.
Yeah, but could you push them all down before one of them your head off?
Because because they would have to waddle towards me, and and a good number of them would probably fall over on their own.
Do you realize how fast a duck can waddle?
Well, no, but these are horse-sized ducks, so they're going to be a lot slower.
Let's actually pick a question that actually makes a little bit more sense than debating the qualities of a horse and the qualities of a duck. Let's ask a question that's a bit more, shall we say, fun.
Okay.
I don't know. I want to fight 100 horses now.
I don't know. I still think the ducks, because ducks are kind of cute. So the concept of a giant duck is, if I could pacify one, okay.
I've worked in a fair. I've seen people get bitten by ducks. There's nothing evil about the little bastards. I mean, Thank you.
Right.
What do you think I'm going to do to that phrase you just said?
This is a.
Not
This
that.
is a. This is going to be another question. Okay. You can meet any celebrity or royal or noble, and of course, Jesus Christ does not count. You can meet any celebrity, royal or noble, living or deceased.
Uh,
Who do you meet, and what one question do you ask them?
and I think that's actually pretty easy for me. King George V, and ask him, "Why did you stab your cousins in the back, George? Why did you leave them to die? Why did you have a heart of rock that plunged Europe into war? Why?"
Hmm. Uh,
I would
uh,
torment his soul essentially.
uh, I guess maybe ask Edward the 7th if he did become Catholic on his deathbed. I don't know. Because like I can't really think of any one question to ask Bonnie Prince Charles, like Bonnie Prince Charlie or any of the more traditional Jacobite claimants. I mean, I guess I could ask shoot the standard shoot the guy who was leading this hold on. Standing on the brazen Mars up in stream and rally, gathering play on Loch Nagar, sounding loud and clearly, even then the healing men and Marshall Hugh with bonds. Whatever. Anyways, the chief from the song, I can't remember his name. The chief from the song,
Cope?
huh?
Johnny Cope?
No, I don't think so. Whatever. The chief who was at 1717 or 1719, the one where the Spanish landed, I think. He had the opportunity to march south into England, and there was a bunch of English Jacobites who were just waiting to rise up, and then he just didn't. And I mean, I guess you know why, but I don't know. I can't. I don't know. I don't know. Will, because like one question, like have a discussion with them and get their point of view on things. I mean, that'd be interesting. But like one question, it's a little difficult. Will?
I don't know. Part of me wants to do something serious, but part of me wants to do something joking. Part of me really wants to go back to meet Vlad the Impaler and introduce him to marshmallows.
No, no, what he did was super based. Turks deserve to be put on pikes.
Well,
Um,
uh,
oh god, but
that's gonna get us. That's gonna get us killed. Okay, Dart, just clarify your statement really quick.
I'm in Minecraft, guys. In
Well, I
Minecraft,
meant like clarify your
but
statement, like Catholic Turks or Turks who aren't
well,
Mohammedans
yes.
or something like that.
Um,
Yeah, just
okay,
clarify
I
quickly.
will concede the
uh,
point. If Turks, if you convert from your false ways of Islam, then Vlad the Impaler will be wrong in that case. Only in that case, if you convert.
okay, that's enough pro-Catholic.
That's enough.
Oh
Let's
well, it wasn't worth it, bro. But anyways,
let's
okay,
mm,
okay. So okay. Now that we let Victor have ask a question, do any of you two have a question to ask?
hold on. I'd like to be able to answer my own question. Thank you very much.
Oh well, okay. Why not?
Uh, I would like to ask the venerable Bede. Was there really a King Arthur?
Ask who?
Yeah, possibly. I kind of like all these things. It's like most mythology does come from a kernel of truth. So was there a King Arthur? I would say probably. Um, did he do everything in his legend? Um, Probably not. But
Yeah, considering the Holy Grail's in Spain.
Yeah. But
I
I
thought
still
the
say
Holy
it's
Grail was buried deep in the deserts of Arabia.
No,
wait
no, the
wait.
Holy
before
Grail's in
Indiana
Spain. Pope.
Jones.
No, it's desert. It's buried in. I mean, it's not buried. It's in a chapel. I think a chapel in Spain, and Pope Saint John Paul II actually said mass with it one time.
Good, but also the Ark of the Covenant is in Ethiopia, guys. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church holds on to it.
I believe that, to be perfectly honest.
Yes,
Right.
based
Okay.
Ethiopians.
So let's. All
By the
right.
way, there also was a there's used to be a Jewish kingdom of Yemen back in the Byzantine days. It was like I think in the 600s, and they started killing all the Christians.
So
On
Tiam and Axum teamed up and
yeah,
I
the
didn't. I thought the Jews didn't have another state until Israel was reestablished. There
no,
was a Jewish kingdom in Yemen.
yes, there was.
several small states, like the Khazars were a thing in the Caucasus.
Well, yeah, the most of the Jews today have more ethnic Turkic blood in them than they do like original Hebraic. Just saying.
Let's
They're from.
let us allow Darth Kilhoun and Will the opportunity, should they wish, to ask the rest of the panel a question.
That'd be Will. I wasn't thinking of a question to ask.
All right, Will, do you have one?
Oh, I'm trying to think here.
If you don't have one, that's okay. We can just.
Here, I actually thought of a question.
Okay.
Okay.
If the panel had the opportunity to live in, let's just say, a very spicy timeline that involves a man in a very high castle, would you take that opportunity over living through our decadent age?
Well,
Oh,
given that there's a higher because man in high castle would still probably shoot me for advocating for glorious Catholic confessional state, right?
I mean, like Man in the High Castle does get that very unrealistically. Like, I
Like
don't
the
believe National Socialist Germany would have ever gotten rid of the Catholic Church because a third of Germany is Roman Catholic, and about I think half of the SS alone was a Catholic confessional, and I think that would just been suicide to do that.
I
So
mean,
I
they
think
did try to introduce all these weird pagan thingies, but
well that was more amongst the elites within the SS ranks, not really the common SS enlistment was typically either a Catholic or Lutheran.
I mean, I've
Lutheran.
never watched Man in the High Castle, but yeah, I'm gonna say no. So,
I guess. I mean, like racially. I don't know. I'd like to see how because you have like the like Himmler or whatever in his weird like racial like tier list thing. I like to see how he tried to categorize me because like I'm a mix of basically all the Western European, well maybe not Spanish or Portuguese, but like the main Western European ethnicities and Slovak. So I'd like to see like where I would fall on that like tier
eh,
list.
judging by what I know, Americans were considered mutts by hardcore Nazis, and we were considered lower than even some pure races just because the fact that we were mutts.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Venus, we'd all be dead.
I don't think that we would be dead necessarily. I think Man in the High Castle, that's like the one thing that gets realistically that like the Germans like still realize like the ethno nuts within it did realize that the majority of the white demographic in America was mostly made up of either Germans or English. So like even though they were mutts, it was like you'd be killing kind of a mixture of like your own people along with another people that you considered within your gene pool. So
It's not, they kind of realize it's not feasible.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, they wanted to exterminate the. I mean, they didn't even want to kill off all the Russians. They just wanted to use them as slave labor. I mean,
They were
even then toward actually like in 1942 they actually set out a policy of establishing a Russian independent state after the war as well.
Yeah. All right. Let's see.
I not to like constantly like retort on like every thing that was said, but it's just like there's like the slave labor of the Slavic people was kind of a no, that wasn't really the plan. At least from the German state, like it was several SS members did want that, but and higher echelons of the SS did want that, but amongst the German state, which you have to kind of like divide the state and the party between two different things, the state itself did not have that policy, and they in fact were going to be setting up a bunch of independent Eastern European states at the end of the war.
Well, isn't it true though that with Mein Kampf, Hitler wanted economically he wanted control over the East because he believed in the shrinking markets problem where a state can either feed itself or be industrialized, and so he wanted to make sure the East stayed deindustrialized and keep it deindustrialized, and so the Reich would trade industrial goods for the food because he thought that Germany couldn't feed itself because it was industrial or something
I
like
mean
that.
that was partially true, especially through his experiences in the First World War, because he wrote that in 1923, and Germany did experience a massive famine that did kill 1 million Germans, imposed upon them by the British, because the German native agriculture industry was not powerful enough to feed its nation alone because of just the massive population boom, and a lot of land was turned over to industry.
All right.
Right.
So, Will, did you think of a question? Oh wait, but Vic, you had to ask. Would you rather live in Man the High Castle or this timeline?
This timeline because I don't know what Man in the High Castle.
It's an alternate timeline where the Nazis win World War II. If I'm not mistaken, the Japanese occupy the West Coast.
Yeah, they do.
No, thank you. I would rather
Uh,
live in this timeline. Will, do you have a question?
And to think Victor might actually be on the chopping block because he's legally blind, so
hmm. Well, he can just get Himmler style glasses, and he'd be like, oh, he's a Himmler fanboy. Let's see. Okay, well, you can ask your question, but then I have another question that's kind of related to Darth's question.
okay. What country has the best food? Let's end it on a food related question.
Well, I end it, but okay. Uh,
Who has best food?
Yeah.
I'm
That
going to.
is a very simple question. Very simple. The
Italy.
Italians have
Uh,
the superior food.
Um, I'm going to say. Bit of a controversial thing here. I'm gonna say us, but only okay, and okay, yes, we do kind of Americanize everything that we touch, but when you can get authentic, but there's also the possibility of getting authentic food from other countries, so you can get authentic German or an authentic Mexican and authentic Italian and whatnot. You just have to go out of your way to look for it. Obviously you're not going to go to Olive Garden to get actual Italian cuisine, but
what do you mean? It is totally Italian.
yes,
Yeah.
the little tablets at all at least in my I don't know. I went to an Olive Garden. It was kind of freaky. There were little tablet things on every table where you could pay and tip from there, and you can also okay. That's just okay. That's like a okay. That's a step too far. Okay, I don't.
That's not creepy at all. That is meant to save you time so you don't have to flag the waiter down for your bill.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
that
it's also
destroys human relationships
yeah, just
between each other.
and also you can play game. You can also pay to play games on it while you're there, so you can like not interact with your family or whoever you're sitting down with. I mean, it's that's not cool. And also,
I do agree, but I do agree with Darth that it takes out some of the human element and therefore isn't really all that great. But if you're in a hurry and you need to get out of there very quickly, that
Well,
thing is very convenient for you in that aspect.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's not necessarily going to happen all the time, and I don't think that it necessarily justifies it. I mean, I mean, if really that was the case, if you really need to get out of here, you would just slap. You would have a rough idea of how much it costs. You would slap that much and maybe a little extra on the bill, and say, and on your way out, say to a waiter that whatever's left is a tip, and if I came up short, tell me next time. But although nobody carries cash around anymore, so whatever. Anyways, let's see.
Right.
But I did have, before we wrap up, because I had to be awake or whatever. I do have a question. Okay, what? Okay, it's kind of building off Dars. Okay, for those of you who know what the Kaiserreich timeline is, if would you rather
Yeah.
live? Would you rather live in Kaiserreich USA 1936 or RUSA 1936?
Kaiserreich.
Born
Wow.
country or live in our current United. Yeah, I'm gonna pick the current United States because I'm not getting drafted to basically a 5-way Civil War battle royale. Are you?
What do you mean fighting for Huey Long would be based?
I mean, yeah,
What?
pretty
He
cool.
lives in Ohio. He would be fighting for the syndicalists.
No,
Well,
he'd
I
he'd
mean,
have to run for the American Union states.
yeah. There's that. I mean, that 30-day deadline that gives you a little bit of time to sneak around.
Relocate.
No, I mean,
Yeah, I
I,
could
I
pick.
really do need to program a submod because I think that where Catholics, like, because of the extra few years of depression, Catholics actually stop being Americanists and start to think, hey, maybe a Catholic state might work here. But anyways, um, sort of building off that. But anyways, no, but not current USA, because current USA has the technological advantage. But between living in 36 real world USA or 36, because like it has the potential, because it's sort of like a high risk
So
high
the
reward, because
question,
it
so
has
the
the
question is, would you rather live in real world 1936
yes.
USA or Kaiserreich world 1936 USA? That's
Yes,
the question.
because it's high risk, high reward. Because it has the potential to go really wrong if the syndicalists take over, but it also has the potential to stay pretty much the same, except a whole lot of extra dead bodies if Democratic USA or the Pacific states, who I can't believe I used to like for some reason, uh, win. But it also has the potential to be potentially better because, like, think about it. MacArthur's in charge for, like, when did he die? The 60s or 70s. I mean, if he's in charge for that long in his dictatorship, that might give time for people to think about what's going to replace him rather than just going back to the Republic. Or if Huey Long's in charge, every man a king, every man a king. So yeah, so it's high risk, high reward. So would you take the gamble?
Hmm.
With unsure, with how unsure everything is with the Kaiserreich timeline, especially considering I am in Baltimore, Maryland, aka war zone hotbed. I'm picking real world.
Okay.
Yeah,
Dice, let's be adventurous with this. Actually, I'll roll the dice, go to 1936 Kaiserreich, hop the border to Britain, and then I'll just help the British royals in Canada to stop the syndicalists and reclaim Britain.
Yeah.
yeah.
Although
Edward
oh
VIII was pretty based. So in fact, I'm playing Hoi 4 in the background right now too, and I went down the King's Party path.
I started I wanted to see, kind of, I don't know, I just felt like doing another USA run, so I'm doing Gardner USA, where I get where I get Long to agree with me, so I'm only fighting a two-way civil war, which means I can't get American Caesar, but at least I don't have to deal with the Pacific states. Let's see. Um Yeah, I don't. I mean, because I would. Because yeah, okay. I will say. Okay, and I know this is making us sound larpy, but honestly, I don't care. I will say that I don't think a lot of people think that the CSA would win the Second American Civil War because of the industrial thing. I'm saying, heck no. The Canadians, if we're trying to be realistic here with Kaiserreich, which I mean, the devs want to make it realistic, and I can get behind that a little bit. But at the same time, give me my meme paths, please. Um,
Well, that's what Kaiser Redux is for.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I only played Kaiser Redux twice, and that was just for the Jacobite America thing. I don't know. I have opinions, but anyways, the fact I don't know the what you derailed my train of thought. I don't know. I think really the Canadians would never let a syndicalist state come up. They would be like, depending on who they wanted to support, they would just they probably I mean they probably wouldn't even they would just come in, beat up the syndicalists, and then support whoever. Yeah, so I'm saying it
Um,
wouldn't get to that point. I may die because I'm in Michigan. So I'm either gonna sneak my way across the border, sneak my way through Ohio. But I'm against Ohio sneaking through Ohio as a matter of principle. So I'll either die. I'll either be shot by a syndicalist militia before I can actually do anything, cower in fear the whole time, or die in a militia. Although I do have
We have better chances if we stick together, so let's meet in Detroit and we can try and cross there.
All right. We'll join the Canadian Expeditionary Force.
And
But it's really an expeditionary force if it's just hopping across the Detroit River.
I
It's
don't
not really much of an expedition, is it?
Depends. All I know is if we get caught and the syndicalists start shooting at us, I'm tripping you.
Hey, Detroit's my home turf, man. All the street gangs are gonna be on my side. So they'll trip you right back. Are there really street gangs in Detroit in the
Hey,
30s?
really?
What the heck are we talking about now?
I don't know. We're getting into circumstances. I don't know. It makes us seem like larpers, but honestly, I don't care because even because here's the thing with every Kaiserreich faction, there's something I don't like about it, and I really need to make a meme where it's like a doge and he's like and he has like the little Quebecois flag and it shows a map of New England. It's like all these people are talking about fighting for democracy or whatnot, and I'm sitting here saying, what faction is going to support my Catholic confessional state? But anyways, yeah. So uh, this has been fun. Does anyone actually have any other uh?
I think in one
Oh,
timeline
I
you could
think
actually
we're
get
good.
a Catholic confessional state. I think that's in Kaiser Redux though.
Yeah,
Yes, that is in Kaiser Redux.
yeah.
But still, I consider Kaiser Redux as canon as Kaiserreich because
But the Italy thing is different though, because it doesn't just start out the exact same. Italy is different.
oh I know that, but it still is funny getting like I'm getting Stalin in charge of Georgia and doing his like weird communist caucuses route, or getting like essentially Bishop Sheen in charge of America.
Oh yeah, that's another. I don't know. I don't know. I really need to learn how to make mods for Kaiserreich because I do have uh, and I want it to be at least somewhat plausible within the Kaiserreich universe, a sub mod idea. But I would actually need to like learn how to do that first. Um, but anyways, but I have a lot of things cooking, so uh, although I also need to learn how to cook. Let's see. So does anyone else have any final uh questions? Would you say this has been a fun episode?
I would say that this has been a very fun episode. And I will say that that last week when I was out for COVID, I will say that if an episode does go that long, I am probably not going to be making it the whole length of that episode. So let's try not to make anything that's 3 hours 45 minutes again. But
Well,
uh,
I'm open for it. I just would prefer it to be when I don't have to work 10 hours the next day. But I mean, I might. All right. So, so
let's
Darth,
type.
no. So Darth, or Will, do you have any final questions, or do you feel it is time to lay wrap up?
I feel we've beaten this episode to death. To follow up on Victor, I'm still trying to watch through last week's episode because I seriously want to figure out what you guys ended up spending almost 4 hours talking
How
about.
far are you in?
Like an hour, 15 minutes so far.
Oh, I don't know. Well, that episode's like unique because you had the three most talkative people on the show, and then you just and then we have like we don't and I guess maybe subconsciously we know we're the three most talkative, so we don't necessarily feel compelled to shorten ourselves, and so we don't have any internal regulator, and then I mean, like, once again, I'd be willing to do it again. I'd be willing to go for 4 hours. One time, I'd be willing to try for it. But just maybe not on a day where I had to work the next Saturday from 8 to 6. So Darth, do you have anything final to wrap up before we wrap up?
No.
All right. So I can now do the outro timestamp. So we are at 2 hours 11, which is pathetic by our recent standards, but whatever. Okay, so if you would like to listen to us live, you can watch us on or listen to us on the Discord. Link to that in the description below. You can also follow us on the Facebook group, which I have been putting in the description for a couple weeks now, I think. You can follow us on Twitter. Gab, please follow us on Gab. I've done more Gabs than we have followers, which is saying something considering the number of Gabs I've actually done. You can follow us. You can visit our website where you can actually get a little sneak peeky at our platform. Subject to change, of course. And any other various social medias that I may have forgot. We also have an Instagram, I think. So, with that being said, we will now conclude in prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Pay our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, Amen. Until next week, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.